Civilization 7 speculation was cut dead this morning with some leaks about the Civilization 6 supposed leader pass taking the internet by storm. They follow hot off the trail of a leak last month that showed that there would be some new downloadable content for Civ 6 on Steam. And of course, Firaxis is working on a new game, also releasing very soon, Marvel Midnight Suns. We've got a lot to unpack and discover. Do consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be sure to cover all of this and more when it releases and as we find out more. But without any mucking about, let's jump in. So, earlier in October, there was a leak, or information sharing, we should probably call it, around the Steam database entry for Civilization 6. Specifically, some more content that followed on from the recent ones. I mean, I say recent, it was well over a year ago that Civilization 6 received its last update and paid DLC like the Vietnam pack, the Portugal pack. Now there was new evidence that emerged that suggests there could be new additions. Speculation here hinted at two things. Either Civilization 6 was getting more DLC, the kind of packs perhaps that we're used to in the past, or it may have been receiving some kind of teaser or integration with Firaxis' new game that they're working on, Marvel Midnight Suns, which was delayed a few times. It, I think, is now scheduled for release on December 2nd if the forum posts are anything to go by there. If you're unfamiliar, as I say, it's a game that's being worked on by Firaxis, the developers also of the Civilization franchise. It's been sometimes referred to as sort of a game similar to that of XCOM, tactical shooter, role-playing game, turn-based strategy. It has sort of all the things going for it, and of course, the Marvel branding integration as well. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'll probably cover it on the channel, but we'll wait and see. Either way, this video isn't actually about Marvel Midnight Suns, but it's really important context for that initial leak, and some context for what Firaxis are doing. So what are Firaxis doing then? Let's talk about the Civilization 6 leader pass speculation now. It started with these screenshots starting to emerge on the Civ Fanatics forums and on Twitter, and I'm sure many other places. Users initially reported that they were finding these images of clearly a very official-looking key art for some kind of Civilization 6 Sid Meier's official leaders pass on the official website. And you can tell, at least by the way it looks on the borders and the banners, that that was legitimate. It seemed to be that this was a news post of some kind that went live perhaps a little early on the Civ website, the official Civ website. We'll talk a little bit more about that toward the end of the video. This, of course, led to much speculation across the internet and across forums on what it could possibly be. Delving into the image is really the only way that we can gather any concrete insights here. We know that it was on the official website, and we know that it uses all the official art and everything. As far as we're aware, this seems to be a legitimate leak. If we look at the detail, then we see four figures appear. There are a few good theories online. My take is something along the lines of the two on the right are probably Abe Lincoln and Elizabeth. Here we see potentially new takes on, of course, don't forget existing civs in the game. New leaders, potentially new playstyles. Again, this is called a leaders pack, not a civilization pack, not a new frontier pass. There's a really clear emphasis on leaders specifically. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that they'll all be in-game civs. Of course, the two leaders on the right aren't the only two to go off. They're probably the two Western leaders on it. But there are two more. The two on the left as well, again, I believe, probably reflect in-game civilizations. It's likely, for example, that it could be an Egyptian leader and a leader from the Congo. Congo, perhaps more aggressive. Ramses II, more of an emphasis on infrastructure. Shout out to you, Alexander, on the forums, because I think your prediction was probably the one that I most aligned with from everybody's guesses. Overall, I think that the clear message that we can take in the naming and the symbolism of this pack is that it will be focused on leaders, not civs. Obviously, Jumbo, it's in the name, but it's important to note because it's suggestive that there may not be new civilizations, but rather new leaders, units, abilities, and of course all that great stuff that comes with a leader in Civilization 6 applied to civilizations we already know. Again, it's just a theory, but it seems to line up with the way that the early content has been designed. So if the theories are legit, then what's next? And are they? Well, we might be seeing these leaders among many others at the top right of our screens moving forward, and if the general speculation's anything to go by, people seem to think, yeah, absolutely. So many people laid their eyes on the website. There's a lot of evidence online. It's not difficult to find screenshots far and wide with people sharing their own accounts on what they saw about the Civilization 6 Leaders Pass. Whether it comes to fruition, changes, of course, is still unknown, and I have to make that really clear. There is no official word that is remaining live on their website at the time of me recording this video. We'll have to see how it plays out in future, of course. It's important to remember when we're considering the legitimacy of this, how it plays out within the wider context of what Firaxis is up to as well. There's, of course, two approaches. On the one hand, this is an illegitimate leak. It is not true. I think that's unlikely, but it is a possibility. On the other hand, it's a legitimate leak, and it will come to fruition. Then, of course, it raises questions of when and how. But more importantly, if this is a legitimate leak, why now? Okay, the underlying why around the yes is probably the bigger question. Is it a 3D chess move to build up hype? Organizations have, I know this for a fact, leaked things in the past, intentionally, unintentionally, to draw hype. Some people see it as illegitimate, but I don't know. I mean, I think if it's a purpose-built tactic to share a little bit of information on the forums to get the most excited fans hyped before an official announcement, I personally don't mind so much. The other option, of course, is that it was a boo-boo. It was accidentally leaked early. Oops. And now somebody at Firaxis, probably the poor intern fetching the coffees or something, is in a whole load of trouble. It's one of those two options, probably. Legitimacy aside, though, it does raise questions of what next, because we had those early leaks on the Steam forums. Not really leaks and not really forums. It was information that there was more stuff being loaded into Civilization 6. And now we have what seems to be confirmation that it's the Leaders Pack. The question is, what's next? So they're working on Marvel Midnight Suns, and it's scheduled for a delayed release on December 2nd. Now, whether these games necessarily compete with the same market entirely, I'm not convinced. I mean, yeah, of course, they're strategy games, this one being a tactical shooter, Civilization being a 4X historical strategy. You're probably going to find some overlap. 2K are publishing it, Firaxis are working on it, of course you will. But I think that the two can also coexist. It's not like it's Civ and Humankind coming out of the same studio at the same time. That would be a really unfortunate timing to have those two coming out at the same time. In this case, though, it's probably not such a big deal. So the two could, of course, release simultaneously. Those earlier Steam database releases suggested that they could, right? The theory was that it was going to be some sort of integration with Marvel Midnight Suns, whether it was just in-game advertising in a fun and creative way, more than just a link on the launcher page anyway, put it that way. However, with recent revelations, it seems like there's more going on behind the scenes than what we realized. And whether you're excited or not, it doesn't look like Civilization 7 is on the cards. In fact, if you keep up with my Civilization 6 news and Civ 7 content, I think it would be fair to say that any predictions we've made earlier or guesswork we've made earlier should be pushed down the line by quite some margin. If Civilization 6 is receiving a Leaders Pass, and it's likely to come soon because they're at least prepping or sharing in some way information and posts and media and blog and all sorts of stuff related to this new quote-unquote Leaders Pass, we should be ready to see it sometime soon. Marvel Midnight Suns releases on December 2nd. It's less than a month away now. Moving through into the new year, we'll see Civilization 6 have not had any new releases for 2 years. April of next year, I believe, or May of next year. Around the middle of the year, it'll be 2 years since Civ 6 received an update. Speaking of which, actually, the last time it received an update, the developers called it the final free update. The key word there, potentially, was in the word free, and that was what has absolutely kept the door open for further paid DLC down the line. It's for that reason that my final thing here would be to suggest that this will probably be a paid DLC. Most of you will have already been assuming that. I was as well. But it's important to note, it will probably be a paid expansion, and I'm going off the fact that they have already stated that the final free update occurred in 2021. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be sure to cover more information as it arises, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.